Does it work? They both work.
Hello.
Well, hello, and thanks for coming. I always wanted to say that. So, Marina just asked me who's going to introduce her, and I realised that that's probably going to be me because we forgot to organise it. It's a dilemma introducing Marina because, as I said when I did a press launch in Sydney, Marina's like the Beatles. Everyone knows her, everyone knows her work, and everyone should know her because the work has passion, integrity, it's human, it's changing, it's direction setting, and it's at Mona. So...
I mean, it's over, you're really doing compliments. It's not exactly your style.
I'm not setting a trend. I'll get there. So, let me get straight into the questions, and it's something I've wanted to ask, so I'll ask this because it came to mind out the back. Marina was saying when she gets nervous and she's got to do a public function like this, she goes to the toilet beforehand, and she sits there for 15 minutes but doesn't do anything because she's worried that she'll need to go to the toilet about halfway through the interview, right? And I already understand why you feel like that, because I feel like going to the toilet now. But it made me think of The Artist is Present in New York, that wonderful work where you sat for, 7 hours a day? So if you're worried that you need to go to the toilet in 1 hour, what do you do for 8 hours a day for 3 months?
This is a really deep question. Okay.
That's all I got.
But wait. Before all this, I have to say something. Just 2 days ago, I got this Australian magazine, the newspaper, and there is a front page, and there is my photo, and there is a statement of David. I never had anything like this in my life. Really make my day. You art shrink my bullocks.
Makes my balls shrivel, is what I actually said.
I misquote. I honestly, that's a huge compliment because I always want to do something with my art. But just want to tell you. But wait. I will go back to questions, but can I just...
This is going like a politician's answer so far. Let me answer the question I wanted to answer.
No, but I just want to say something. My first, I was going to Art Academy, and my first, day, I was really young and, full of incredible hope to be, good artist and so on. And there came this old professor and looked at all of us there, and he said, okay, what you have to know, if you don't have the balls, you can't make art. You can never be a good artist. And I was so depressed. I went home and I cry. Of course I don't have balls. What am I going to do? So this thing with balls was really a big thing in my life.
Yes. And this at least explains why I'm not an artist. So let's get back to the
toilet,
artist is present.
To the toilet. Okay. So, it was a big story in your place, in New York Times, like Jerry Saltzer, the critic of the day, he was even making all this kind of presumption, what I do, how I piss, do I have the diapers, or I have some kind of hose who comes out in a little bucket, and they made lots of drawings, cartoons about this whole process. But to tell you the truth, I was really worried. I was not worried about 7 hours not going to the bathroom, but I was worrying very much about 10 hours because every Friday, museum in MoMA is open 10 hours. And that's this 3 hours more, 2 hours more, and that's really hard. So, first of all, I changed my entire biology of my life because I was preparing for this performance like NASA is performing for space program. Entire year, I didn't have lunch. Because, every time around 1 o'clock, your body produces acids and is hungry. And if you don't eat, you don't feel well, you can get headaches and so on. But for the entire year, I just skip the lunch. So I have the breakfast and the dinner so that my body learn not to produce acids. I also had this test that actually I only drink water in the night and going to pee in the night so that I don't pee in the daytime. And it was really complicated because in the night I have to rest, I have to drink the water, and I have to pee all together in one night. So that's not easy. And then I really trained, but I was still very worried. So I make the seat of the chair with the hole, so that could be also the toilet if it's needed. But then after 3 days, I never use it. It's just about mind concentration, my dear, willpower. That's it.
That's what you get. See, ask a smart-ass question, get a potent, informed answer. I'm hoping that that's the trend. So, but before I get on to even more trivial questions, when we published our catalogue, Monanisms, I'd already acquired some Marina works which were displayed in the first exhibition at Mona. They were phenomenal, and I found that they damaged me. They made my ball shrivel, apparently. But to show that this journey today is a journey as much for me as you, and that I'm not particularly well informed, I would like to show you for our catalogue. When we printed the catalogue, we printed 10,000 of them. Of course, Marina was in it. We made one very significant error, as far as I know, in the whole catalogue. Marina wanted a copy of the catalogue, but I couldn't give it to her. And can we have that slide, please? You'll see that this is, I'd like to introduce you to Marina Abramović. So I actually contacted someone that was in contact with the printers and asked them to print one copy where it was, but it was going to cost a lot of money. So eventually I wilted, and now I'm confessing my
I have no idea.
Sin.
That's amazing. I would be so much cheaper for you just to pay me to change the name.
But if you were going to be paid to change your name, I'm sure it'd be the spelling of your last name. Because then if you were, you had the Abramović spelling as in Roman, you could gain significant benefits. Because there's so many people think I'm Jewish, and then they put S and edge on the end, and then Roman Abramović, of course, will be then my relative in some ways, but he's not. I don't even know him. But I always use his name when I go to the hotels. There's no rooms, and I can't get any lodging. I say, did Roman didn't call? I say, maybe we have one room for you. So. It's like
by the way, I have to tell you something that I don't know if you know. It's not Tasmania, but New Zealand is close by. When I'm sitting in the planes, and then people have to talk to you, and you try not to talk to them, and then they ask you finally what you're doing, and how possibly I can say to anybody what I'm doing to the normal human being in the plane. So that's my back cover is, I always say, I'm a nurse from New Zealand, and I come to your country to just study health program. Always works. Till my gallerist, Sean Kelly, one day he was coming from art fair in Basel, and he was very tired, and the guy next to him wanted to talk. And he said, oh my God, I have to use Marina technique. So the guy said, what is your profession? And the Sean said, I'm doctor. He said, what kind of doctor? He said, brain surgeon. And the guy said, me too. And then but New Zealand really works.
Performance artist, that's what I'll claim from now on. So.
Should we go some serious talk now?
Okay.
To prostitution?
That's exactly where I was going. I met you in Amsterdam 8 years ago. It was the first time we met. I'd never been to Amsterdam. At that point, you'd lived there 30 years. You showed me around. Do you remember where you took me?
To Red District. It's the most tourist, and everybody have to see, working girls.
And the reason you took me there was because of my ignorance of both prostitution and your work. So I was told about this phenomenal one-night work, which was the opening. What was it called?
A role exchange.
Sorry?
Role exchange.
Role exchange. Well, don't make me work hard. Tell me about role exchange.
What?
Tell me about role exchange. recreate the moment in Amsterdam.
Okay, I have to say that I've done many lectures, but it's not exactly the piece people talk about much. But now let's do it. Let's go all the way. All right. So I'm young. I come first time to Amsterdam, and I never saw in my life the women. You know, I come from communist country, and I never saw the women in the windows. You know, actually working girls. You know, the prostitutes. And I was so impressed by this whole idea, and also incredible sense of fear I will have, because, you know, I come from very strict background. My mother, you know, I done performances, all of them before 10 in the evening, because 10 I have to be at home, and I have a military control. So, you know, being prostitute is the worst you can get. So that was huge fear. And I say, oh my God, that's interesting, because I always do things what I'm afraid of. I don't do things what are easy, because doing easy things, or things you like, you never change, you're always the same. But the things you're afraid, the things unknown, that you go to territory nobody else been, or you push your mental, physical limits in the places that you really meant something, that's kind of interesting for me. So the gallerist asked me for the show, and I proposed this show. I say to her, at that time I was 10 years artist. So I asked the gallerist if they can find me the prostitute who is a 10 years prostitute with career of 10 years, and I'm 10 years artist, and then we changed the role. She come to the gallery and become me, and I go to the window, become her. And we did it. First of all, it took me 3 months to find the woman, because everything was, you know, actually, how you call controlled by pimps. So finally I found the one who was married to the pimp, and the both of them like me, and they say, oh, this is so interesting, maybe, you know, new kind of perspective for her work, so let's do it. So at that time they offered me $110, and I wanted to do 6 hours. So that 6 hours she's in the gallery during the entire opening, and I'm in the window. And I told her that this is money, and I give her half, 55 for her, 55 for me. And she looked at me and she said, but I'm not Mother Teresa. I mean, I made so much money. I mean, I can't do this for you. And she said, I'll give you just 2 hours. And, you know, she gave me these 2 hours. So we had the 2 cameras. One camera was completely like a normal camera, like you go to the normal gallery, you know, filming what's happening, and one secret camera in my part. And before I left, you know, because she left to the gallery, she was as much nervous as I was terrified to be in the room. She told me just 2 things: that I should never go under her price because of her reputation, and what else? Yeah, that was it. Just not to go under the price. It was very important to her. And not much. She didn't give me any other kind of clues. So finally, we made this film, and we put it together, and it was quite interesting. You know, she come to the gallery, being me, and the people start asking, you know, how you feel, how you feel here. And she said, I feel very hot, and she started taking clothes off. And then they ask her, okay, do you know about art, anything? And she said, no, but I know everything about fucking. So you know, that was her conversation. On my side, I had, in these 2 hours, 2 people. One was drunk, and he left, and other ones were asking for her and not actually want to pay the price. And then when we put material together, she said to me that I will die from hunger to being prostitute, that I have no talent at all. That is, I'm the worst. And why? Because she said that to me, I've done everything wrong. Because there are 2 mirrors, one on the left, one on the right. So when the people come, you always have to check who is coming. If the man is very sexy and full of himself and really strong ego, you have to make this certain position of, you know, attract him. But if the man is very small and little weak and little sick and not great looking, you have to make mothery face, you know, and so and I was just sitting there and looking in one position, like, you know, straight in the front of me, you know, like a complete performance way. And of course, nobody came.
Literally. When I'm interviewed, people always want to know if I'm a product of my environment, if growing up in Glenorchy is influenced what I became and where I did things. And I think for me, the answer is no. I think that, and it doesn't matter how many times I say no, my answer is ignored. maybe it's just that I don't know myself very well. When I look at what you became and how much of your career is completely original, off the beam, I wonder if you can see a progression from your childhood to the adult you became, to the performer you became, and to who you are now.
Yeah, it's a huge progression. It's such a long way, oh my God. You know, I never look to past, because if I look in the past and all things I've been doing, I feel so old. I think I should just die and have a pension like now. But I always look in present and in the future, what is going on. I'm now just really concerned how much time I really have. 10 years more, 20, 15. You know, I really like to live 103, but let's see if it's possible. You know, and just to work till the last minute. But when I look at the past, it's been so difficult. You know, performance art was nobody art. Nobody even considers art. I mean, my family want to put me in mental hospital. My mother and father was criticized by the communist leaders, what kind of education you give to this woman, you know, cutting stars naked and burning herself on the street. I mean, it just could not work. I was the black sheep all the way. And then, you know, I left Yugoslavia, and I believe, actually, I was so lucky to find the performance art as the best way of expression. Because for one artist, which is really important, to find what kind of tool actually you need to use to express yourself. You know, painting is a tool, performance is the tool, the poetry, the filmmaking, dance, acting, they're all different tools, but you have to kind of find your own DNA tool that is the best for you. And the moment when I found performance, that was it. And then I was trying to really develop, you know, for so many ways. I mean, the beginning performance was performed to 10 friends. This was like big public. 30 was like crowd already. And then this extended more and more. And then performance really became mainstream only recently. Before, was no mainstream art. Photography and video was, you know, never mainstream art, but became very fast. But not performance. Performance was just always, you know, you get a little telegram and say, oh, we are doing the opening of the show. Can you do some performance? This was entertainment. This was like you're drinking the glass of wine and you're looking, somebody's doing something on the corner. Performance is serious business, and I really try all my life to actually prove it, that serious business. And if it's good, performance can change your life, can have this incredible transformative elements. But then, you know, then I went to the lots. You know, for me, it was really big growing was not working in the cities, but going to nature and also going to indigenous cultures. For me, it was really important, Tibetan culture, Aborigine culture in Central Australia. People don't understand how much influenced my life and my work more than any other culture. Then right now I'm working with shamanism in Brazil. This kind of people have some ancient knowledge that I can really work with the body, because performance is immaterial form of art. You have to feel it. It is no object related. And to feel, you have to understand energy. And energy is immaterial. So to learn about energy, you have to learn from old cultures. And by the way, I just want to say something. Can we put the necklace? I got this wonderful necklace, which was really meant very much to me. Wait, I want to show.
Do you have the picture, the slide of the necklace? Yeah, thanks.
It's given to me from Lola Greno, and she's an Aboriginal woman. She's in the audience. Please, Lola, where are you? Thank you. Thank you. I was really touched because she told me that this necklace is given to the warrior women. And I was really happy to hear the word warrior, because long time ago, I made this huge mistake by calling myself a grandmother of performance art. And everybody's sticking to this title. Please, at that time I was young, now I'm old, I don't want to be called grandmother. I want to be warrior, and she really gave me this back. Thank you, Lola.
Nicely done. So you said that you were searching for your form of expression. Does that mean you knew you were going to be an artist, you just didn't know what type of artist?
I always knew he would be an artist. This is one thing that I was so lucky. So many people doubt, you know, and they spend lots of time doubting of the professions, about the purpose of life. But somehow, since ever, I don't know to do anything else. I was terribly jealous on Mozart because he started to do his public career with 7. My first exhibition was 12, and there's a really big difference in age.
What was your first exhibition?
It was my dreams. I paint my dreams. This was my first thing because, you know, dreams was given to me, you know, by whoever, and I dreamed them. And I also believe in parallel reality. I believe in everything, by the way. I never actually.
And I don't believe in anything.
I know, this is our main connection here. I believe in it, you know, and I never play as a child with the dolls or strange things. I play with the shadows. I see invisible people, which I talk to them and so on. So the dreams was a big deal. So I painted my dreams. That was my first thing. And then I went to the truck accidents, and then I went to the clouds. And from the clouds, I went to performance. It sounds logical, no?
And you still had to be home at 10 o'clock?
Always. My mother, you know, my mother was, both parents are, you know, national heroes and major. My mother was major of army and father was general. This was a hell living with them. Because my mother would wake me in the middle of the night if my bed was not perfectly straight because I was sleeping too messy. So now when I go to the hotel, people think they don't sleep there at all because you just open the bed, I stay there, I close the bed.
So that answers my question. You are a product of your past.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I try so much to do against it, but now I'm becoming worse than my mother.
Fighting against what you are is not a fight you can win. The nature of great art is exploring what you are, not trying to recreate yourself or redeem yourself. It's an exploration, and that's the thing that you've done superbly.
Just to add one more thing about my mother. So when she died, by the way, she died. Everybody dies one day. So anyway, she died, and I went to clean her house, and I found all these books I was sending her, the catalogs and things, you know, from my achievements. Lots of big monography, like, you know, 500 pages. And I see them like 20, 30 pages. She re-edited every single photo. I was naked. She just took it out. And now they're all new editions. Just me dressed, which is not too many.
You should re-release them in your mother's. It's a sort of director's cut.
Absolutely.
So, a work that has that pathos that touched me when I heard about it. I think I heard about it off my sister, so it would have been many years ago. But anyway, was the work on the Great Wall. And as I heard it, it was the culmination of a long relationship breakup. There was some time spent getting permissions to do it, and it made the process complex. Tell me about it.
Okay, can we put it back?
Yes,
Let's go to the Great Wall. All right. So there's this man I meet in Amsterdam. I was invited on, the invitation came in Belgrade on my birthday. And to go to Amsterdam to make a film program on body art. It was really just the beginning of the performance. So my grandmother doesn't know anything, especially not what I'm doing, thanks God. She looked at this invitation and said, everything come on the birthday, it's important, can change your life. So I go there and I do my program. It was exactly the day of my birthday. In the evening, everybody comes together, and this man who was another artist there too, who was doing the performance also. And I said to everybody, let's have a drink because it's my birthday. And he said, oh no, let's have a drink also because it's my birthday too. And I said, don't trust you, show it to me. And then he had a diary, which the name of 13 November was just rubbed off. And every time I take the diary, I take this date of my birthday away because it was always kind of not nice day. I never like it to celebrate my birthday. So this was the same day. We fall in love, and we spent 12 years together. And we made lots of performances, and it was really a very important time of my life. And then, of course, like every relationship and every love story come to an end, and we wanted to walk in the beginning, we wanted to walk the Chinese Wall and married. But Chinese took 8 years to give us permission. And in 8 years, lots of things happened. So we was separating. And as we never give up, we say we're going to walk Chinese wall anyway, and go up to the middle and say goodbye to each other. And a friend of mine say, why you just didn't make phone call? So much easy. Anyway, so he started from the Gobi Desert, which is, all in the desert, buried the wall. I start in the Yellow Sea, and we walk each of us 2,500 kilometers, which takes each of us 3 months to come to the middle and say goodbye. And this was the end of relationship. And it was one of the most difficult moments of my life, that break. And it was a big story. The Chinese, it was the time the China was not open to China, to Western countries. It was 12 provinces completely forbidden for foreigners. And it's a long story how we actually get permission to walk the Chinese wall. Finally, when the government, two governments, Dutch government and Chinese, decided we finally going to do this walk, they said to us that we have to wait another year. And we say, why? I didn't realize that Chinese never had a Chinese person walking the Chinese wall. And for Chinese, it's a question of pride. So they took the guy from post office, somewhere in the middle of China, to walk entire wall from the beginning to the end, which took him 1 year. And then we was invited to meet the first Chinese man walking the Chinese wall, so the Westerners can walk as a second hand. This was kind of crazy, anyway. And then lots of stories of Chinese.
Doesn't sound crazy to me. And the other day I'm trying to capture here what I call the Marina moment, the moment of pathos, irony, and humanity that you identify in art, that we experience in our lives. And those moments, they're too close to us in our lives, so that's why Christ dies on the cross for our sins. And whenever I think about you, I always have that Christian metaphor in my mind that you are a representative, an absorber of pain or doubt. And I had a moment where I was talking to, actually she's an artist, a lady who has terminal breast cancer, and she was saying that she'd had radical mastectomies and she was about to have some cosmetic surgery, and she wanted nipples, and she was basically saying, I just want to die with nipples, right? That was an incredibly engaged and powerful moment for me. And while I was hearing it, I was thinking of that work, that representative, emotive quality that you bring to bear. Is there a thought process? How do you dream up works of art? Do you discard most of them? I remember John Lennon said about songs that the difference between a good songwriter and a bad songwriter is the ones they throw away. Do these just emerge from you automatically? Is there a process? Is it intellectual? Is it purely emotional? I know do you feel like they're given to you as the dreams were?
You mean the ideas?
The mechanisms by which you create art, the ideas.
How the ideas come from. So, in my case, first of all, I hate studio. I never like to work the studio. For me, the studio is a kind of trap. People call the studio, but actually they're full of computers. So I prefer office. I have office, and I have friends, and I have people working in the office, and we have computers, and we organize things. But the ideas that don't come from studio, they come from life, and they come from research, and come from traveling, and come absolutely unexpected. If you do the life, the idea have to come as a surprise, have to come from somewhere else. You actually have to be receiver and sender in the same time. That kind of process have to go through you. And idea can come in the kitchen cutting garlic, or peeing in the bathroom, as we talk about peeing already, or just sitting and doing nothing, or it can be in a dream. I have a friend, the artist, she say every time she goes to sleep, she say, I'm going to work, because basically sleeping is working, because you're dreaming and you're getting ideas. And the one thing that we are very, very afraid in our culture, and we are always learn not to do this, and this is doing nothing. doing nothing is extremely important, because we always feel about doing nothing as guilty. Because I remember sitting at home and I'm just wandering through the window, and my mother comes and I immediately pick up the book that I look like I'm doing something. But doing nothing is incredibly important, because when doing nothing, you actually start connecting with yourself. And then ideas come freely inside your mind. And that's a really important process. So for me, the ideas come unexpected. They come almost like a hologram in space. But I totally take away ideas who are nice, who are pleasant, who I say, oh, it's very nice, and something I like. These ideas are not good ideas because they're too easy. I always pick up idea when I become obsessional about that idea, because I'm so afraid of this idea. I say, oh my God, I'm going to really do that? When I got the idea to sit 3 months in a museum, I say, oh my God, I can't, why I have to have such idea? But I could not just take it away. And then I really had to do it. And it's interesting that you're not changing your lives through your life because you're always, doing things you like. In my work, I put the bars so high and put restrictions so high that I actually, through the work, I change myself. When I say to myself, I'm going to do this no matter what, no matter that I drop dead on that chair, I'm not going to stand up. I'm going to do to the end. And because of that, that change comes from that kind of restrictions, not from the things you like. So that's more or less how I work.
Yes, I don't know if it's willpower or passion, but that ability to be self-aware almost without limit. To, like, if I was, I didn't do the artist is present. If I were, but it did cross my mind that a nice thing to do here, perhaps, would be just to walk out and not speak, just to. But the trouble is, it would have the nature of a joke, whereas it probably, should have the pathos. I just can't imagine how I can do that. I'm a rationalist, a reductionist. I find that integrity comes at the moments when you look inside yourself. You're most likely to behave consistently with your value system when you're self-aware. The way I get self-awareness is by thinking, not by turning myself off. I find it an incredible thing, and perhaps you would call it, perhaps those with a bent towards the spiritual would call it magical reality. And I walk into the room in the gallery, in the museum, the crystal room, where the body is confronted with the energy. I have no connection with it whatsoever at a spiritual level, but it's aesthetically completely profound for me. So I feel like I'm getting something from it without understanding where it's coming from. Do you think you can change people? Do you want to change people? Are skeptics like me part of the process, or?
I'm going to answer the question, but just to want to something to say about your mind. I really think you belong to the other category. To me, like one of the most fascinating scientists in all time was Nikola Tesla. And if you read his biography, he's saying that his ideas come like a hologram images in his mind in the front of him. And all what he have to do is to take the pen and make the drawings of these machines. He was making them. And he was so sure of precision of that image that he never actually made the model. Other people made the model to see if they work or not, but he not. And I think that you have more this kind of mind. You have the kind of hologram image, which you don't call spiritual, but you have vision of things. Otherwise, this museum will not happen. So you have the vision of the things that in your mind, which is just different way of working.
I don't, and I honestly doubt that he did as well. I think.
What you mean you don't?
I think he's. A lot of people claim a lot of things about themselves, particularly when you start to believe the myth. There's nothing like... who's interviewing her? There's nothing like a
Answer my question.
Yes, it's easy to start to believe your own myths, and Tesla created some amazing things, and then he sort of tripped out a bit. I wonder if he thought the way that he thought he thought. I don't think so.
Now I forgot your actual question, what it was.
You are a politician.
What was the question? Before Tesla. We lost it here. You asked something?
I was talking about whether you're trying to change your audience.
Oh, yes, okay. So, this is my point of view. It's so many things in this world are wrong, from the violence, people still cutting each other's heads, and poverty, and the planet is dying, and name it. Newspapers are always full of bad news. And what we are doing, we are sitting in our comfortable chairs and we are looking to this world and criticize how this should be done or that should be done, and this change should be made, or that the president should go away and get another one. But what we are never looking into ourselves, what we on personal level can do to change something. And that's what is all important. So for me, I really wanted to see how I can change my consciousness about things. By changing my consciousness, I can influence others, and I can see how we can make something better. So it's really important for an artist not to just reflect how the society looks today, because we know how it looks today. It's more important what is the solution and how we can actually lift human spirit. Because it's very easy to put human spirit down, but how to lift the spirit, how to find some kind of way that you can get in touch with your own self and what you can do in your private way, to contribute to change of the world. Because it's not something you're doing personally. It's a huge work of collective, of being together. And that's so hard to do because we never really look in ourselves. And that's all what you have to do. So my proposition in Mona, like this simple example we have in counting rice, looks like so simple exercise. What the hell I should count the rice for? But if you do it, you see what actually can do this experiment in your own life, and how you can take that discipline of counting rice into your own life, and how you can contribute of some kind of change. And also, I'm now doing also the project and I would like to invite you all in Sydney and the Calder Foundation, which we have 5 different exercises for the same reason. It's called the method, how we can actually, to simplify daily life, can do something for ourselves. I was in the summer, I just talked to the press conference, there was this symposium, no, actually dinner, and there was one of this Nobel Prize winner, and I think he wins research for DNA, and he was close to 90 years old, and he took the glass to give a toast, and he said, today human brain didn't change for 30, 60,000 years. It's always the same, but the technology changed so much that the human brain can't follow anymore. And if we don't go back to simplicity, we are really lost. And what I'm proposing here as an artist is back to this kind of simplicity. It's not that technology is wrong, it's our approach to technology who doesn't work anymore, because it took all our time. An idea is, which I'm here kind of, fighting for, is simplicity, having free time of doing nothing in order to actually connect to yourself, and then, changing your consciousness and see what you can do with that changed consciousness. It's lots of big ideas here. David?
I wasn't asleep, I was just engaged in the technology, sorry. You were trying to be uplifting. You are uplifting. The work at Mona with the Tibetan monks is incredibly uplifting. Is the Scream Room uplifting, or is it just realigning? Is it just retuning? I don't feel uplifted. I feel challenged. I feel threatened, and
Screaming is liberating energy in your body. That's what screaming is about. And it's one thing you scream because you're angry, but if you scream just for the scream, it's much better actually. Really scream like, "Whoa!" It's good. It feels so good.
What?
That's not much of the scream. That's actually not.
I'm not
But,
much of a screamer.
but you know, in the scream room there are three different works. One work is my first scream I made in '75 when I was leaving Yugoslavia. At that time, ex-Yugoslavia, I just screamed till I lost my voice. I just want to scream everything out, all the frustrations, restrictions, everything that I felt not free. I screamed and I felt good and I lost my voice in the process. Then I met Ulay. Then we wanted to scream in each other's mouths to see, you know, that kind of dynamic of male and female energy and what happened. And somehow I screamed longer than him, but also lost the voice again. And then the third room, the third scream is just done recently, a few years ago. I went to to Oslo, which in the museum there is a very famous scream of Edvard Munch. And there's just a woman, a man, whatever, standing in this very famous painting with his whole body is actually turned into this incredible scream. And I was invited to do sculpture in the park in Oslo. And we walk around, and I'm not, you know, the Matthew Barney was making work, the Damien Hirst, Amish Kapoor, but I don't make sculptures. I don't believe in sculptures, especially not in nature, because I think nature is so perfect without us messing around. So I look at the park, and they told me, oh, in this spot particularly, this was Edvard Munch was standing there and painting in this landscape, the Scream. And then my idea came as a hologram, like a Tesla in my head. And I said, okay. I went to the museum and I measured exactly the painting, the frame. And then I made the iron frame, very simple. And I brought to the park and I just put it in the earth. And then I invite 270 citizens of Oslo to come and scream through this empty frame into the landscape. Because I was thinking how you can, in this century, actually understand painting by having your own personal experience, is by doing it. So then came that scream out of this. So there are all different screams, different stories.
But it's a beautiful story and it's a beautiful work, but an Edvard Munch, the scream, he certainly wasn't uplifted. It illustrates a struggle. So you've subverted it or reinterpreted it by my assessment. I find your work, that engagement, incredibly uplifting, as you put it, positive. But once I follow it back to its reference, the frame, I then find myself taken in the other direction. You know, it's the nature of pain is evident.
Yeah, but it was really interesting, you know, to turn our overall experience to the public, because if you look these 270 people, you have there are some people who never scream in their life because they suppress the emotions and they start screaming through that frame and they could not stop. They went completely crazy. There is also all the different professions, different age, different pain. The people through the scream, they express so much, and it's actually abstract. And really makes you free in so many ways.
And you seem to be able to get the same effect, the same engagement, the same internalization from screaming and from being completely silent. It seems to be whatever the engagement is, it's not relevant. Like, it's just that moment of pathos. Also in our gallery, we've got the lovely work of you and Ulay with the bow and arrow. Yeah. That, you know, is, you know what the outcome is because the video exists, but it's 4 minutes of tension, pain, and yet somehow out of that process comes some internal beauty. And having spoken to people that were, and I'm segueing back to the artist is present, some people that were there that I've spoken to found that such a passionate moment that it literally changed their lives. And I know that in at least one case because the Tasmanian author, Heather, are you here? Heather Rose? You're here. That's good. That means it's going to work. Heather has written a book that is entirely set, a novel that is entirely set in that world. Do you know about this? So it's about to be published. I'm glad. Yes. You do know about this, Paka?
I met you yesterday, yes.
So Heather a year ago sent me the book. I read it, and I thought it was written with the same sort of weird passion and beauty that you capture in your pursuit of yourself in the art. So I liked that Heather completing the circle with the novel. I'm glad she's found a publisher, and I asked her to perhaps get an extract, a 30-second extract. Could you read from it, please? Or is it impossible for you to see?
She needs microphone first.
The microphone is just off to the side.
I've got, oh, whoa.
Thank you really for doing this, because I never heard.
It's my great pleasure, and the story of this novel is it started evolving back in 2005 when I saw a photograph of Marina's work and at the National Gallery of Victoria, and it evolved over time, and in 2010 I went to see The Artist is Present as part of my research for it, and sat opposite Marina 4 times, and then I thought I would ask Marina, through her people, if she would agree to being a character in the novel, and also 2 of her assistants, Marco and Ellie, the brilliant photographer who photographed all the 1,500 people who sat opposite Marina over the 75 days. He is a character in the novel, as is Marina's assistant, David Baliano. So the novel is completely fictional. Everybody is a character in the book, and the characters are the people who go to see the performance and reflect on Marina's work, but there are real people in the novel too. So this extract is from the character of Marco and Ellie.
Please, before you read, can you tell me yesterday what you said to me?
Thank you. Sorry, Marina, what did you say?
That yesterday you told me about the publishing. Can you tell the story?
Oh, that's funny. The novel went, this is good for all of you who are writers, okay, that things really do take a very long time, and this will be my 7th novel to have published. So the novel went out a couple of years ago to a number of publishers in New York and to a couple of publishers in Australia, and they all turned it down. And I put it in a drawer, and a few months ago my agent said, please, can I send it to a publisher here in Australia? And she sent it to Jane Palfreyman at Allen & Unwin. And Allen & Unwin have published some of my previous novels, and literally on Friday, the day that Marina arrives in Hobart, she, or at least I'm aware of her in Hobart, I got the call. So it felt like it took Marina coming all the way to Tasmania to get the novel published, which was really lovely. And I also really want to acknowledge, as you all know, Marina is probably one of the most courageous people in the arts, if not just in life, that any of us will have the pleasure to observe. And asking someone to be okay to be a character in a novel is a big thing, and you did it without any restrictions, and I'm very, very grateful for that, so thank you. So this is just a tiny bit of the novel. When she planned this show, he said, I will photograph everyone who comes to sit with you. 75 days, she said. Are you sure? Can you do it? It's a long time. Every face, he said. We will capture every face. So here he was in the middle of his promise, and spring was gracing the city outside. The children in the strollers who came into the atrium were no longer swathed and booted. He smelled rain upon trench coats and wind in the wraps and scarves. For 75 days, he was an archivist. He captured the moment when they first sat and their eyes connected with Marina. Then he photographed them when their emotions began to surface. A sitting could last 2 minutes or 2 hours or an entire day. They hadn't expected people to do that. So many expressions crossed the faces of those who sat. He looked for intensity. He looked for the moment when the person sitting was consumed by the indecipherable. He felt as if he was inside a world of raw truth. Who would have imagined there would be such faces? He had photographed architecture, history, musicians. Now he looked into the human face day after day, painted with curiosity, and he saw the abyss of history within a human heart. Everyone was its own beaten, salvaged, polished, engraved, carved, luminous form. He captured this ephemeral thing, a communion between an artist and her audience. The chair opposite her was an invitation. Come, sit if you wish. Here in New York, where time was everyone's currency, and to gaze deeply into the face of another was possibly a sign of madness, people were flocking to sit with Marina Abramović. Here at MoMA, where people gave a Picasso a fleeting glance, a Monet, even a Pollock just a moment or two of their invaluable time, visitors were watching the performance for hours. She wasn't so much stealing hearts, he thought, as awakening them. The light that came into their eyes, their intelligence, their sadness, all of it tumbled out as people sat. Marco, with his long lens, an archivist's eye, captured them all.
Thank you. Okay, that seems like a nice moment to throw it over to you for if anyone has any questions. It's a little hard for me to see, so could you, if you want to ask questions, you know, beat on a drum or shout or walk towards the microphone, because...
I have a great idea. It always works if you limit it to 3 questions and then you accept 12.
Are you saying 3 in total or 3 per person?
No, you say only 3 questions, but turn to be 12, and it's always good, because sometimes, especially if you go to North countries like Sweden, these kind of places, you ask the questions and it's complete silence. But when you say only 3 questions, then everybody wants to ask. But I don't know, Tasmania is
we may
so
have
much
no questions.
more cheerful. And by the way, this is one thing I want to say. In every institution, you have the bar in the back. And it may be this because it's cold, or I don't know, but it's always drinks. Is this influence the cheerfulness?
They're not for these people, they're for me. Does anyone have any questions? Ah, yes, I can. Can you walk to the microphone, because we'd like to record, please, and we'd like to hear.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your experiences in Central Australia, Marina, with the Indigenous people.
Okay. Wow. I can speak till tomorrow about that. Let's where I start. I wanted to tell you the story, actually, how I get there. I think that's the first thing. You know, I was in 1979. Nick Waterloo was the director of the South Wales Gallery, made this in Sydney, made this biennale called European Dialogue. And it was the first time the European artist was coming to Australia. And Ulay and me was one of them. So we arrived in Australia, we arrived in Sydney, we made performance, and then after this we had 10 days left. And in these 10 days, I was thinking, let's go to Alice Springs and let's meet some Aborigines, like a very touristic idea. You know, oh, let's go to Alice Springs, let's meet Aborigines. And Nick Waterloo said to us, I have the letter for you, for the lawyer who is taking care of the land rights, and he maybe can, you know, help you to see some outstations. So, going to Alice Springs is a really expensive business since 1979. It's cheaper going to Europe than going to Alice Springs, and we didn't have much money. So we put this money together, and we had a return ticket and come back 10 days Alice Springs. So we arrived in Alice Springs, and we asking for Philip Toyne. He was the lawyer for the Aborigine land rights. And they said to me, Aborigine, whatever, the headquarters are end of the street. It was like 3 streets in Alice Springs. So we go to the end of this street, and there is a motel completely fucked up, like only 3 rooms, kind of working. And we hear somebody screaming on the landline telephone. And we go to the last room, and there he is, unshaved, big boots, on the, the legs on the table and screaming on somebody on the other line. So we wait patiently, and then he looked at us, he said, "What you want?" And we, so a European artist give this letter. He read the letter and he went completely red in his face. He said, "You motherfuckers, get out of here. I don't want to see you. What are you? You want to suck the bloods of Aborigines? This is not circus here. You want to make photographs and then go home and show to your friends? Get out of this office." And he threw us out. And we was like, what are we going to do now? We can't go back because our ticket we could not change and we didn't have money. So we was forced to stay 10 days in Alice Spring, literally, just wandering around. It was one Aborigine gallery we went to see, and we started buying every single anthropological book to read about it. And the more we read, the more fascinated we get. And at the same time, there is only 2 pubs in those days where you can eat. So each time, every day, at least we meet Philip Toyne twice because he's eating the same pubs. And after about 3 or 4 days, he became friendly to us and he said, "Okay, what you want?" And we said, "We are performance artists. We came to Australia. We were like, this, for us, this culture is so interesting." And he said, "You know what? I'm not going to give you any pass and you can't go anywhere. And if you come back with the serious, the idea that you can do something for them or help in any way, then I'm going to help you." So we spent these 10 days in Alice Spring and went back. We went back to Sydney, and then we from Sydney back to Amsterdam. In the meantime, we applied for the Australian Council grant that we can come as artists visiting. And next year we got the grant. We arrive immediately back and we say, okay, we will do performance, we will do lectures, whatever is asked for us with the grant, but we want to stay 1 year with Aborigines first. And they say, fine. So we rent some really we was almost hardly walking the jeep, and we drive with this jeep all the way to Alice Spring. We arrive in the same motel with the same Philip Toyne, who completely got surprised seeing us. And he said, "Okay, now we are here, what we can do for you?" I say, "Okay, now we are talking." So first to say what you know to do, because he was just making the book about Aborigine land rights. He needs somebody to make maps, he needs somebody to photograph and to make layout and design. All these things we could do. So we spent 3 months in this motel working with him on this book, and we finished the book. And after this, he said, "Okay, now I give you permission to go to some territories." And then we start walking, going there. And this, I think that experience which we had in the desert, it was only Central Australian desert. Most of the time we was first with Pitjantjatjara, then with Pintobi, and then we went to the outstations in the west of the Lake of Disappointment, and we spent there most of the time. So that experience changed my life completely. It influenced my ideas of performance, influenced so many things I've been doing in the past. And I think that people don't understand the incredible importance of that experience personally for us. First of all, it was in the beginning that it was impossible. I had the flies everywhere in my face. I could not even take them away, and I start calling them the name: Jane, Jennifer, Igor. The steward is still on my head. So it was all around. After a few months, these flies disappear because I understood that we were strangers in the nature. Finally, we start smelling like nature. So everything was gone. The moment when this was gone, that is almost the same moment we start having a really connection with the people we was meeting there. Because in the beginning, we was not having communication. I remember we would make Polaroid photograph and we would give to them and they would just throw it away and the dog would piss on this. And it was not important. And then one thing happened just out of nowhere. I was sitting on the fire around with the people, and I was thinking of something. And that person was answering into my head. And then we understood. A conversation was not verbal anymore. It was completely telepathic. They was talking to my head and I was talking to their head. And after that, everything started happening. Like another parallel reality world opened. The most important thing for me of that experience, which I still live on it, it's this idea of here and now. These people don't have past and don't have future. all the dream time, all the dream songs are happening here and now. It's a present. And this is the present that is the only reality we can actually deal with. Performance is about present, is a time-based art. It's not happening in the past, it's not happening in the future. It's happening always now. We will go with the old medicine man to the landscape and he will say the ice woman is fighting the whatever, the rainbow man. And it's not that Dreamtime story is happening in the past. It happened in the past. It's not it's going to happen in the future. It's happening right now, and everything's happening right now. And I understood in that time that only reality we could have is that moment. I'm talking to you in this moment. Every next second, this whole ceiling can fall down. Asteroid can, fall on our planet, and we are all dead. And past already happened. So there's no any other reality. There is not anything by present. And the idea that this culture are nomadic, that this culture are constantly, dealing with ceremonies as a way of life, the complete connection with the nature and the land, and that idea of here and now, it was mind-blowing. And my theory is, I don't know, that's something that it's really was clear to me, that for me, the full-blood Aborigine man and woman are fully realized human beings who use much more brain than we do, because they have extrasensory perception. They have so many other abilities which I was witnessing that is not possible rationally to explain. And the Tibetan culture have the technique how to get there with Aborigines already there. And these two cultures influence my work. These two cultures are based of everything I've been doing later. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi. Mine's a follow-up to that. I grew up in Alice Springs and am quite upset with the government at the moment. I'm not quite sure whether you're aware that...
You have to call Alice Ice Rock Uluru. That's the real name.
Or Mbantua, which is what it's known for the Aboriginal people in Alice Springs. But in Western Australia, the government's considering closing down Aboriginal communities. And what you were saying is very true, is that there is a lot of unseen in culture, and a lot of the connection to culture is really important, and the land is really important to Aboriginal people. And the idea of the government closing those communities is absolutely heartbreaking to so many people here, because it's essentially the death of a culture that's potentially going to happen. So I guess mine is more of an invitation for you, because I love your work, and I could imagine seeing you coming to Western Australia and being able to create some sort of an artwork or a piece that would draw attention to all of the stuff that's happening over there. I don't know whether you would be interested, but
it's really, what one thing it's really important to understand is art can't change the world. Art can only bring the consciousness and can maybe ask right questions and can give awareness of certain things. But every single human being have to have this change of consciousness to change the world. I mean, your problem is the same problem with America, what is happening with the American Indians, what's happening in Brazil with the indigenous cultures, the tribes who are almost extinguishing. All the problems is something that we have to understand, that how mistreated we important people, indigenous people. And this is something that I really was doing through my work in so many ways. I mean, I try my best, but the one thing, the politicians, it's interesting to see why they're only like Gandhi or Mandela, the two politicians who have that kind of awareness. And why the politicians are always oversexed, corrupted, they do terrible things. But we are the ones who we are voting them. We have to change everything. But it's not possible one single artist to do any of this. It's a group work. All of us have to do something about it.
To make people think for themselves. Thank you.
Okay, I think this will be the last question, because you said 3.
Three, but
from
with the
balcony,
possibility
David.
to extend,
From the balcony, David.
Hi, Marina.
Hello.
Thank you for
up.
that. You've told us more than the education department has about the Aboriginal Dreamtime. That's great. Thank you very much.
Is this a sarcastic?
No, not at all. Absolutely not.
I'm
And
just-
my question will
I'm an
confirm
artist
that for
being
you.
there, and I really appreciate being there so much. Okay, what is your question?
I'll just introduce the word. It's a Greek word, Hesychasm, hesychasm. Just wondering what connection, based on your background, Serbian background, hesychasm, that mystical tradition, and the Orthodox religion might have on your practice at all. Any bearing?
Sorry, I don't really. Can you just tell me? First, you're so far. I didn't understand the question. Can you tell me?
Hesychasm, that mystical tradition in the Orthodox Church.
Asceticism.
Hesychasm, Hesychasm.
What it is?
It is clear that this
It's not-
Serbian tradition is unknown to Marina, which makes it
I don't
a
know.
very difficult question to answer.
That's okay. No,
No,
but
I really
it's-
don't know. I don't know the word. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know a Serbian word for it, but anyway, I'll just have to leave it for now. Thank you.
Don't give up that easily.
Okay.
You know, in my
thank you.
life, when somebody said no to me, this is just the beginning. So let's go on with question again. Tell me simply. With Orthodox Church?
Yeah, it's a more mystical strand of the Orthodox Church in that they had, for example, breathing practices that have been compared to yoga. They had practices that are very reminiscent of the kind of meditative practices that you do in your work, and it's all about being present, that interior space beyond forms. That's. I'll spell it once more, and I'm going to run away.
Wait, do you understand? I don't. I really.
I think that was more a statement than
Did
a
you
question.
want to say that there's some practices with the Orthodox Church or the Christianity are related to yoga, but also there's asceticism, the long time not eating periods, or the pilgrimage ideas of prostrations, this kind of stuff. But it's related to what?
Just to the exploration you do in your work, just with the title.
I use
Artist
okay.
Present.
Now I understand. I use everything. I use absolutely, as I believe in everything, I also use everything. I really go to different cultures, and I not go to different cultures as a tourist. I actually go and stay in that cultures and try to learn from that cultures in the most humble way, not coming there as a superior Western girl and wanted to see what they're doing. I just go in and kind of blend in. So I just been recently studied shamanism for 4 years. Just like, people know how to move the wind or to make the rain. I want to learn this. What's the problem? Let's go and learn it. Telepathy needs to be learned 4 years, but it's so much cheaper than telephone. So let's use that. Slow motion walking. I mean, there is lots of, like Vipassana slow motion walking is incredibly important exercise. So which I done, I take this exercise, I try and I work, and I pick up one's work for me, and I put them into the performance, the practice.
Thank you.
That was a great answer.
We done it, you see, it worked.
So you're a hunter and a gatherer. Will we take another question? We will, because you're keen.
I am keen. I want to know, Marina, what is too much? Obviously, you go to the edge and your edge is so razor sharp. And I guess artistically and professionally, when have you had an idea that it was like, no, I really can't do this?
First of all, let's turn the question around. Who create limits? It's so easy that our mind is a very tricky thing. We very easily give up, and we very easily think, oh, it's too much. But how you know it's too much when you don't go to the end? And that is very important, to really go to the end, and then go a little bit over the end, just for sake to understand. It's a very simple thing how we give up so easily. But look at this. If you're running in the park and you're jogging, and you are like really, really completely on the end of energy and say, oh my God, I have to stop now because I can't anymore, and I'm going to go home, have a breakfast, and have a shower. And in that moment comes the guy with the gun, and he say, if you don't run, I'm going to kill you. What you do? You run like crazy. But from which energy you're running when you already completely exhaust your energy? You are running from your reserve of energy, which is survivor energy. But in every molecule of our body, we have this extra energy. And the different cultures, who are not Western cultures, but ancient cultures, know how to use this extra energy, not just because to preserve themselves and because to save your life, but in any other ways. I am interested to tap that extra energy because that's the key. That extra energy is incredible because that you can make, then the too much become not that too much. Okay.
Thank you. What's going on?
If I may, Marina,
Where's where? Oh.
Hello, I'm right here. I'm fascinated to know about the Abramović method, and if I may, I'm so intrigued to know how you prepare yourself for your long duration performances. Are they the methods that you use yourself, or is it okay to ask what sort of, how do you prepare physically, emotionally, spiritually to go into that zone?
First of all, I'm not perfect. Second, I'm full of contradictions, and I never do anything really. I never do anything with the huge discipline, except when I do my work in real life. So I can say there's 3 marinas up there in me. The one marina is very heroic. They absolutely go for it, no obstacles. They don't care, how much painful things are. Then we have second marina, who is very, spiritual and very emotional, too emotional, and can cry all the time, and it's kind of pain in the ass. And then is the third one, who really like bullshit, who like fashion, who like eating chocolate, who like to be lazy, do nothing, and just, try to avoid any hardship and any confrontation. All 3 are real. And we, all of us, if you look deep in yourself, have maybe 3 or more or 10 people inside yourself. And you have to live with them. And each of them, you have to give time and space and respect. And, when I perform, I don't prepare. Like when I done, I don't know, House with Ocean View, it was 12 days without eating. They told me I have to prepare my body for this performance. I went and I eat lamb chops, and I had the ice cream, and I had the chocolate mousse and everything. And the next day I went and performed for 12 days. So it's no rules. I think it's all about mind, setting mind into the target, and about willpower. And that's what I do. I don't do anything with any rules. I actually break them all the time. I don't know if I help, but that's the truth.
I have to take this one because it's my wife.
Darling, are you okay? What's going on? Why are you going so easy on all this magical thinking? I'm worried about you.
Who?
That seems to be a question for me. Okay.
You mean the
I'll answer that as I wrap up. So, this sparkling magical thinking compared to my unpolished reductionist reality, these aren't worldviews that coincide, and they are arguably, and I would argue in other circumstances, not compatible. But let me use an anecdote, a joke that Woody Allen told to show why I'm tolerant of Marina's worldview where I normally wouldn't. A bloke goes into a psychiatrist and he says, "Doctor, you've got to help my brother. He thinks he's a chook." And the psychiatrist says, "Well, I can't help him unless you bring him in." The bloke says, "Well, I would bring him in, but I need the eggs." So I don't want to expose what I see as a misstructure because I need the eggs.
I think we have to end now. Yes. Thank you.
Thanks.